because in some ways, like, the sensibility of a quilt seems like it's always been present in your work, that like kind of like collage patchwork idea. Yeah. And to like literally sort of go there. Well, and also like the place that the quilt has in like Southern art history and like African art history,
Like especially with the Keys Band.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that work.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's like, like that's certainly something that I'm really interested in is, craft. You know? And
well, that makes sense with what you're saying about being a welder. Yeah.
Exactly, and like I have had a pretty privileged existence, but I definitely kind of romanticize the notion that I'm part of the working class.
Yeah.
Eventually, the goal of what I want to do is be in the studio all the time, but I wrestle with that. I want to maintain like some craft, or at least a relationship with it. If I'm not directly, a craftsman or whatever, then I don't know. It's certainly something that's important to me. My father, and the likes, a lot of the men in my family, and the women, for that regard, were working class people,
right?
And had pride in their craft, But yeah, so this is kind of like purgatory for work, stuff I've finished, and then stuff I've kind of
out here in particular.
Well, yeah, this space.
Yeah.
And then where I throw shit that I don't want to deal with.
Yeah, these shapes are cool. Is this like an old church sign or something?
Well, that's something that I made, but kind of abandoned. I'll probably revisit it at some point, but yeah, and mysticism and religion and stuff is definitely very important, or part of my work, and I think that because that it's ever present in my life as far as my family's concerned. My father converted to Islam when he was he must have been 16 at the time, and changed his name. And my mother comes from a Southern Pentecostal church, but they both kind of abandoned that to some degree. But it's kind of, there's like this lingering, effect.
How do you think that expresses itself in your work?
Well, I certainly, I like to think that I'm like tapping into something that's, outside of me, but, and I just find that like culturally, that religion, specifically Christianity, in my case, because my mother definitely, the church has definitely had a bigger impact on me. I think that's just, eternal.
So your mother didn't convert?
No, she did not. My dad changed his name, so we have Muslim names, and there's like these little fragments, like we would say prayer, we would say, an Islamic prayer before we eat, and there's these little fragments, but my mom never, she kind of played along. It was,
Well, it's just like strikingly open-minded, or just like being able to balance those things. It seems like not obvious, especially like in the South, maybe, or like in the suburban South.
Yeah, my dad's from Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
He has an interesting background. He's in the military. Very smart man. But yeah, my mother definitely is, as moms do, been more of an influence,
Yeah.
But yeah, and in a lot of ways, I feel like I don't have a connection to my history, I guess. Like I lost all of my grandparents when I was really young, and and there was a lot of trauma associated with that, and not within our family. It was interesting growing up watching that unfold. But now I'm like of age, and I wish I had more of a a connection to that, you know. But so a lot of times I'm like, you know, I don't know, I feel like these works are like, you know, fictional in some way, you know, but personal at the same time.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it, you know, I don't know, fascinating. A lot of, you know, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what it is I'm doing, but certain things definitely seem to, you know, inspire me more.
I mean, like, I'm thinking maybe the first time I saw your work was in that 2-person show at Hilo Press, and something that I noticed in the work even then that's like present here too is this juxtaposition of like very like pop culture references, but also like very specific political references. Yeah, and that's just always been really interesting to me, in its ability to be like, in some ways, childish and lowbrow, but then at second glance, like, you're actually referring to a very particular historical moment.
Yeah, because you know, I like to, yeah, I like to specifically, the, you know, history surrounding the civil rights movement, you know, history post-Civil War here in the United States, and you know, it is very fascinating to me. And kind of, I'm, you know, constantly reading, you know, about, you know, and although I don't really intend to make any particular statements about things, I like to, like, just add them to the work, you know, whatever I'm personally discussing, or, you know, processing, whatever. But yeah, I do a lot of, like, collecting of things, you know, like, consuming them, and yeah, pop culture and American political history is probably the two things I, you know, consume the most. And,
materially.
Yeah, yeah, without it, in a very real sense too, because I kind of destroy things.
Yeah.
You know?
Just like through daily use, or like in the studio?
In the studio, daily use, like that used to be a t-shirt that I used to wear, a Darth Maul t-shirt, and I like left it in my truck or something like that, in the bed of my truck for a while, and it like became this like interesting, like, you know, decayed image, you know.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, this kind of like, you know, I just like to like things collect dust, you know, keep them around for a while.
Is there a guiding principle for the way that you compose these different elements? I mean, like, one thing that I have thought about in relation to your work before, and like specifically maybe because of things like the t-shirt or the very like late 90s pop culture references, is like the graphic design of t-shirts, but particularly like from that period.
Right.
And that just like hyper-graphic sensibility, which I think is actually kind of having a resurgence in design in some ways too. But yeah, is there a sort of, because that's what I think really struck me, is like visually juxtaposing sort of different divergent elements is not, like, it's a kind of simple and understated maneuver, but it felt like you had like a totally developed language for doing so. And I was like, what's the guiding principle here? Like, how are these compositions, how do you decide what elements belong to each piece?
I guess it's,
after all that collecting.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of, it's very intuitive, I suppose. You know, I like paste things on stuff and rip them off. And when they feel right, you know, like this one took me a while, you know, I had things pinned up on there, you know. And this was very interesting because, like, when I paint, you know, there's like probably like 4 or 5 paintings under the final painting. And typically it's like, you know, me just kind of pasting things and seeing how I like it. And oftentimes, you know, I feel as though I could do better, and so I just paint over it, or, you know, rip it off or something like that. But with this, you know, I didn't really have, you know, I had to be confident, you know, I had to commit to something before I, you know, sewed it. And then, so yeah, this was a you know, a little bit more a little bit different of an exercise, but it's very intuitive. You know, I feel like I'm still trying to develop a language, but I do feel as though like, you know, I have my intuition, you know, is fucked with. And when it comes to the actual collecting, it's just, you know, whatever catches my eye.
Right.
You know, I just
so
kind
it
of
is almost unconscious or subconscious.
Yeah. And then, you know, they kind of lay around for a bit, and some, you know, a spark, if you will, you know, happen. But yeah, there's a lot of decent paintings under the ones that that are done, you know.
Yeah.
Which I've just kind of, you know, submitted to. Like, I know that, like, the first, like, you know, if I get something completely painted over, I know I'm going to paint over it again. Like, I just, like, whatever elements that I initially put on the painting, probably going to get covered up.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you just sort of accept that as the condition. Yeah.
Which I sometimes, you know, I try to hold on to stuff, like those oranges.
Yeah, that seems to be, I was going to say, that seems to be like a recurring image.
The fruit,
the oranges, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because it's kind of it's easy, to be honest. Like fruit and flowers, or you know these gems of the natural world, and I just kind of work them into my work, and they kind of, you know, fill in blanks, and oftentimes become the subject, or, you know, fall in the background. But it's kind of, you know, it takes less thought, you know, because they just are what they are. You know?
Yeah.
They don't need, you know, a lot of context, and, you know, they don't have this, you know, connotations that a lot of my other elements do.
Mm.
So, but
they get to be sort of like just a platonic ideal of an orange.
Without a doubt,
yeah. Well, they also, I mean, they kind of, for me, visually, like, invoke at the same time, like, still life, but also they sort of resemble advertising or, like, packaging.
Well, typically I work from images, you know, like books and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a flatness to it, you know. And it's funny you say that, because I've been, you know, I want to do just more like straightforward paintings, like still lifes and portraits and figurative work, and kind of using that as, you know, an armature maybe for more, you know, more interesting stuff. But yeah, you know, these are just things that I have yet to do. Books are just easy. Like, you know, I collect books, you know, like much like I collect these obvious. And, you know, they're, you know, depending, you know, they can just be, I don't know, it's a good way to find, you know, source material.
Yeah. Another, I mean, especially with the layering, but just visually it reminds me of fly posting, like we posting bills on a wall, and like some of your work especially has that sort of like pasted and ripped off and like repasted and degraded quality.
Yeah. I certainly like collage. Yeah, straight up, you know. And I kind of struggle with, or I kind of, you know, I feel as though like I should do, like I said, do like more straight up paintings, like straight up collages. But I don't know. It's hard.
Can I take a picture?
Yeah. But yeah, I want to do more sculpture work, just assemblages, you know.
Yeah. This quilt's awesome. Yeah, so you went to Oglethorpe, right? And studied studio art there?
Yeah, I got my BA there. Studied under Alan Lowell.
Cool. And what kind of work were you making in school?
Well, I wasn't really making anything. I was a bad student. And it wasn't until I graduated and didn't have, you know, assignments
right.
that I took it took this seriously.
Right.
And but yeah, I was just and I did a lot of printmaking.
Oh, interesting.
Which is, of course, I don't do much at printmaking at all now.
Yeah.
But I feel like that in a lot of ways informs what I do now.
I can see that, yeah.
And but yeah, I love being in being on the press and being in the print shop.
There's going to be live printmaking at our crush.
Is there?
Yeah. Jiha Moon and actually Diana Settles are doing prints.
Okay.
It should be really fun.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be, I am curating a show at Hilo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, paintings. I'm excited for that. That should be cool. Yeah, I love Diana. You going to Hassani's show?
Tonight?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to. I mean, I'm sure I'll see it at some point.
Right.
But I'm kind of exhausted. I had a really long week.
Yeah.
Just thinking about just laying low. Because I also kind of got some work done today, so I kind of, I don't know, haven't really started my weekend yet.
Right.
But,
that's fair. Yeah, these works are pretty. I've been working on this one for forever. I keep painting over stuff. But I did that. I started that portrait in August. I haven't touched it since, but that was the first thing I put on there. And then there's a number of elements under there that I've since then painted over. But yeah, this one's actually kind of wearing on me. I want to be done with it already.
yeah. Is it the largest? I mean, it's a pretty big scale.
Yeah, it's definitely the large, and that's part of the problem, is that it's absurdly large. 12 feet. I don't know what, probably won't be working this big ever, or at least until I get a bigger space.
Well, it's super wide and not super tall. I mean, it's just an interesting shape.
Yeah, I wanted to do a painting that looked like a billboard.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so I think billboards are at those proportions, 3 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think. That's what I felt. It's 12 by 4. I don't know how I'm gonna get it out of here. That's the issue. And these are all in their beginning stages. But yeah, painting is easy for me. It kind of comes naturally, and I can
just technically.
Yeah, or I just feel I don't know. I feel I'm confident, However, the artists that inspire me the most, do sculptural work, like David Hammond, Besar and whatnot. But I'm definitely gonna keep painting. That's for sure.
How do you choose or find the portrait subjects?
Oh, well, I'm because, so that's I guess that's a moment where my father's influence comes in. Because that's of Elijah Muhammad and just that the whole Black Power movement and its relationship to Islam, and the Civil Rights Movement's relationship to Islam, I find very fascinating. Nation of Islam being